What are our impressions of the Blue Jays after their first home series victory of the year? And should Davis Schneider be playing every game? Hey everyone, Rob Wong and Rob Longley here on another edition of Long Ball. And Rob, home cooking did the trick for the Blue Jays. They took 2 of 3 from the Mariners. Could have been a sweep if not for some unfortunate batted balls by Cal Raleigh and some of the other hitters on the Mariners and extra innings there in the series finale. There was a lot not to like in their 10-game road trip to start the season, but did you see some better signs from this team after their series against Seattle?
Yeah, Rob, certainly some more positive signs in that opening home series. They finally got home and got settled a little bit, and there was a lot that went in with that too. Getting used to the new stadium, most of the guys were unpacking and trying to get into their apartments and homes and all that kind of stuff after a 10-game road trip, after 7 weeks of spring training. So a lot on their plate, and they came out and they looked. The bats were a little bit alive, at least in the first 2 games, and they got outstanding starting pitching efforts in all 3 of those games, which was also encouraging. I guess if there's a downside, it's that this team, if they're going to have some success, they're going to have to find a way to seize opportunity and sweep away a team like Seattle when you have them on the ropes like that. And bases loaded in the 9th inning in the 3rd game, and they couldn't get it done. And then what happened was they were exposed with basically one of the major weaknesses of the team so far, and that's not enough arms in the bullpen. Tim Meza has struggled all along, and they had no choice but to use him, it seemed like, in extra innings, and lost the ball game. The good news with that is Jordan Romano and Eric Swanson, I would think, would be back within the next week. So the pitching situation certainly seems to be starting to shore up again, which is significant because it was the strength of the ball team last year. Now they're just going to have to hope that they get some more consistent approaches and results at the plate. We've seen flashes of it, but game after game, we haven't probably seen quite enough offense from this Blue Jays team just yet.
Yeah, and that offense continues to be inconsistent. There was some signs of life in those first 2 games against the Mariners, as you mentioned. And one guy that I think continues to be hopeful of getting into the lineup every day. I know fans definitely watching this team have been banging the drum for him for quite a while here, but it's Davis Schneider, who pretty much his entire career, Rob, since becoming a Blue Jay, has hit outside of about a 14-game stretch there in the month of September. But he's gotten off to a nice start here. Do you see the potential that at some point very soon he could work his way in where maybe he's getting more playing time than the likes of an Isaiah Kiner-Falefa or even a Kevin Biggio?
It's certainly possible, and I think that the Blue Jays management and the coaching staff are at least open to it, which they should be. There seemed to be, we certainly saw it in the first road trip that there was a tendency to stick with a lineup and try to be consistent that way. But I think it really behooves him at this point to go with the hottest hands. This front office has been far too matchup oriented in terms of the way that they put together lineups each and every day, and I think there's got to be a little bit more of a swing the other way to get guys in who are having success at the plate. Obviously, you can't ignore matchups, but when guys like Davis Schneider can do their thing, I think among the many impressive things about him so far is how cool he is. You talk about the clutch gene, if there's such a thing or not. Well, he doesn't seem to get fazed by situations, and that's why so many of his big hits, so many of his home runs have come not just as token hits and token home runs. They're at key points in ball games and come when the team needs some offense. So I guess the liability with him is he's not the most adept defender out there, and the Jays are still putting a premium on that, especially in later innings. But one would hope anyway that manager John Schneider would find ample opportunity to get Davis Schneider and his bat in there, because he's been one of the most dynamic hitters on this team. Other than that little bit of a slump that you mentioned, Rob, late last season, struggled a little bit in spring training this year, but he was just working on some things, and certainly has had a good first 2 weeks of the season at the plate, and the Jays need more of that for sure.
Lineup is dying for some thump, and Davis Schneider providing that right now. We'll see if the Blue Jays offense can get things going against a bad Rockies team. I guess that's the kind way of putting it, as the weekend series begins on Friday night at Rogers Center. As always, you can find Rob's Blue Jays coverage over at the Toronto Sun.